Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom? What's on your evil mind? Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I had legit thought about doing NPR voice for the intro, but sometimes the music starts up and it just kind of gets to you. I am your host, Roddykat, for tonight. I'm Roddykat every night, but I'm your host for tonight. And you can find me at Twitter at Roddykat, and you can also find me at NewsNerdsNeed on Twitter, NewsNerdsNeed Twitter, and the CB Caps Instagram account. And with me tonight, one Agent _70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody?
And not with us tonight as I speed along is PCN_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Network, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, and his umbrella site therein. And of course, the Osiris of this ish, Tim DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, also Tim DOG98, and The Click Nation and theclicknation.com. That's TheKliqNation. And of course, Comic Book Resources. Go over there and check him out, or he's over there writing his face off. And not that terrible movie. So I'm gonna say that like every other moon. You can find this here program on the CSPN Network, Cold Slither Podcast Network, CSPN.us.
Do it today.
And I kind of have to keep stopping myself from saying that because I will either say that or you'll be joining us soon. So I'm glad you do it. But you can also find this. What was she talking about? You can also find this podcast on Google Play and Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Coastal of the Podcast Network's SoundCloud page. Hopefully there is no SoundCloud rapper bits on that page because I haven't been to it in a minute, but rest assured, purely podcast, I hope. But with all of that out of the way, we will get into the show with the comic books of the week. And we have an ending, folks. And I dare say it's a pretty decent ending. I would go so far as to say spoiler alert.
It works for me.
Realms, folks. Huh?
I said it worked for me.
Yeah. War of the Realms is at an end this week. Well, although, there's probably going to be like a tie-in or something.
No, there is an Omega book, I think it's called.
Yes, because I just remembered that. But regardless, the main thing is over with. War of the Realms number 6, which is what we will be talking about right now.
Right, so one of the things that we had spoken about just prior to the show starting is whether or not we agreed that the book kind of sticks the landing for the story, and I think it did. Roddykat, how about you?
I would agree with that to a point, and I would, like I said, I will say, like I said previously, or then, that given the events that have started and ended this year alone that have not, it is better regardless.
It sticks out in that regard.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. At the same time, because it was like, okay, it does what an event does. It's the things get tied up, things get brought up for the coming time, because obviously there are other books that are going to break off from this that they start talking about, so you get that, which slightly was a problem to me because it's been doing that I feel like the event's been doing that the whole time, but it's not been a detriment because like, yeah, we know, but at the same time, you kind of gotta keep poking that stick. That said, the story itself, yeah, it did what it needed to do and ended fairly well. you know. But and going back to what I just said, I was like, I kind of felt like it did that a little more than ending the story in the end. But that aside, you know, like I said, it wrapped up pretty nicely.
Right, because it's almost like we were expecting an epilogue to be wrapped into this issue, but this actually takes us to the very end of the War of the Realms battle, as it were. And we'll get the after effects and the aftermath in the Omega issue.
Right. And I don't remember there were being an alpha.
Well, I don't think there was. I think it was just a lead up in the regular Thor books.
Right. Because usually there would be or at least
or has been, right? Exactly. An alpha book and then having an Omega book as well. I'm not sure if is it called Omega?
It is called Omega. I do remember that. Yeah.
So, but in any event, just going over the events of the book in very quick succession, and with the spoiler bell in full effect. So the spoiler bell has been rung. You have been forewarned. So ultimately, what we have happening in this issue is, we find out a number of things that kind of parallel Thor's journey as a character with Odin's journey, because one thing we find out that wisdom seems to always cost an eye.
I will get to my feelings about that in a minute, but yes.
That's one thing. The second thing is, and I did ring the spoiler bell, if there is a place and a way to reforge Mjolnir, that's pretty much how and where it happens.
Oh, and going back, you also sometimes lose an arm.
Right. Right. And the one thing, and I actually wrote this twice in my review, in my notes for Thor number 14 and for this issue is, and I couldn't help but think of the Charlie Brown Christmas special. That's what worthiness is all about, Charlie Brown. In all seriousness, that's definitely part of this issue. It's a lot of fun. I personally think they stuck the landing. I really enjoyed several of the scenes that came into play here. There's a bit of time travel involved as well, and we all know my feelings on time travel. I am not a fan.
But it's
always been what you call that. Just hold on to that thought. It's always been part of Jason Aaron's Thor story, though,
right?
Because of the young, current, and old Thor part of the story.
Well, I wasn't really going to say anything about that outside of what I said, but in my notes I got imagine them bringing in the FF to the MCU in a similar fashion, because basically this starts off with them in the future, where the future King Thor, if you know about it, I know Agent 70 can allude on that if need to be, but and then the FF just happened to pop up because it just mentioned the fact that it happened to be in the story that they were reading, or at least a half of the FF, and that was pretty much the gist of what they've done in the story. Actually, now that I think about it.
Well, yeah, I mean they're on the front lines in New York. Wow. Yeah. So really, their part in the miniseries has been brief because the general populace of New York City and the general populace comprised of the heroes have all been transported around the world or to Avengers Mountain.
Right, and technically they and even then they still kind of came in the event late.
Right.
Circulation wise, anyway.
Sure. So, they pop up and they of course have a time machine.
Right. Which which brings me to a question on that. So in the original run, how did that work? Because I do know that I do remember that was the thing I remember you talking about. So basically they brought in young Thor and old Thor from the future.
Right.
How did they do that?
I don't recall.
Oh, okay.
I honestly don't recall.
Okay, because I'm about to say, they did have them all together at one point.
They
right?
did. This is like 6 years ago.
Right.
I'd have to really go digging. I'd have to go down to the drawer boxes and pull out some of those
the archives.
Yep.
Sure. And also, so the thing that kind of bummed me out, which I understand why they wouldn't have done it, because also we see the reappearance of Jane Foster Thor briefly, which I thought was cool. I was like, all right, so they found a way to bring her back as Thor again. That makes some logical sense, I guess.
It's a setup.
Yes, exactly.
Set up for future stories, and if you have been reading,
it's a setup for a book that we know is coming next month.
Exactly. If you've been reading solicitations, then you know what we're speaking of.
So that you'll still being the case. I'm like, okay, I didn't expect, like, knowing that was coming up, I didn't expect them to have her back as Thor again. I figured they would have kind of poked more in that direction. But either way, it was cool. It was cool to see. But what I really would have wanted, they had all these Thors. I was like, man, if they had put Thor's core from Secret Wars in here, that would have been awesome.
Listen, they could have had Thor'ld. I was very surprised they didn't.
Exactly. There was even a Thor'ld joke in there. Which brings me to other time, because when all the three Thors were talking, like I totally heard him for his voice as a King Thor. Actually, all of them really, but more so as the King Thor when he was making that joke. So I don't know, but like going back to what I thought was like, yeah, this is some of this kind of okay. Yes, we Odin before he lost his eye, so that part aside, like some of this still feels like it kind of mirrors cinematically, especially especially with not necessarily Ragnarok, but Infinity War, yeah.
I was about to say, when I read your notes, I was just like, is that a new title that Roddykat is pitching to Marvel, Eternity War?
I mean, hey, given what happens in Doctor Strange, that could be.
Sure.
I mean, we don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, like I said, it kind of, some of that kind of mirrors, because obviously, he lost an eye. Thor lost an eye, just like, so that pretty much says, well, we know how he gets to King Thor, but at the same time, just some of this stuff happens. He gets, spoiler alert, he gets back an old friend.
Right.
He becomes worthy again. And of course, the handle.
And they kind of redefine this version of Thor's worthiness as well. Sorry.
Right. Exactly. No, you're right. No, it's good to put that in there. So yeah, almost like what they did with Loki a few years back. Kind of redefined his role a little bit, which that they still kind of go back and forth on that.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that was that was the other thing. But regardless, like I said, there was some cinemas that there was, like, so even with how
there's definitely some notes taken from the cinematic universe.
Exactly. So it was like, all right, well, and I know, like I said, some of this was has happened comic wise in a way previously, but regardless.
Right. So just very quick before we move off this book, I really like this book a lot. So did one of our other co-hosts who's not with us tonight. Just a couple of quick notes. What's great about this is that you could tell that there were just a lot of nice little, funny lines that Jason Aaron dropped into this. Mm-hmm. Right up front, there's a little bit of fun between Iron Man and the Punisher, of all things.
Right.
Where
again, so almost sounded like cinematic version of
right, and it was like I couldn't help but smile reading it. I was like, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
We get a little bit of tying together of some of the limited series that have been tied into this event.
Most of them pretty much had a line or two that had, or at least especially the ones that were ending this week, which we were talking about, kind of was like, hey, this line kind of wraps up that.
Exactly. Kind of, it's a straight tie-in, essentially, like where we'll remark later, as I noted in my notes, that some of the limited series that were tied in had endings that happened in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
or at least get alluded to anyway.
exactly. Well, at least like primary endings, whereas like we kind of get a little bit of aftermath in a few of the tie-in limited series that were published this week. So, but yeah, I enjoyed this a lot. This is definitely a potential click of the week for me. I really got a kick out of this. The art is spectacular. I could tell that Aaron, definitely had a clear idea of how he wanted to wrap up this story. We'll see what the epilogue does to the status, how it reestablishes a new status quo.
Yeah.
So
the last thing to say is, like, you kind of knew halfway through the story what was going to happen with Thor specifically. You didn't know how, but I do love how that happened. His worthiness came back, and with that Mjolnir, because you could almost hear when that happened. I'm like, all right, just waiting for it, and zink, there you go. So yeah, that was War of the Realms number 6. It was a good one this week.
Sure. And as I mentioned earlier, just very quickly, it didn't happen all at once, because there's a process that was happening that we kind of knew, was being alluded to off screen.
Sure.
Off panel. And, when I mentioned it earlier, is that if there's a way to reforge and a way to do it and a place to do it, that's how it would happen. And, and it would involve the Godstorm. That's something that Jason Aaron introduced into the Thor mythology and made a part of Mjolnir. So
yeah, that's one of those things. I guess if you hadn't been reading Thor, in the last, which is 6 years or whatever, when he in the time that he's introduced that, that part you wouldn't have known it, but it probably didn't matter as much. Like you probably would have, I probably would have been like, oh, wait, what is this from? But then I was like, okay, it's probably something that was already on the run. So if you're interested, you can go seek that out.
Yeah.
Next up, I'm going to see. So to finish up the
tie-ins. Well, we have Agents of Atlas, Uncanny X-Men, Avengers, and Thor.
Right, and Punisher.
Oh, I did not read the Punisher one.
Yeah, and I didn't read Uncanny. So let's do Agents of Atlas.
Okay.
Wait, you got a little typo there on that, but. War of the Realms new Agents of Atlas number 4 ended, which is this week. Yeah, this one, I don't know. This was kind of one of the ones that was like, it's a side thing. We know they're getting a book next month, or not next month, in August. So it's kind of just cleans up, they're part of that with where they were fighting Cinder.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that, which again got alluded to in War of the Realms 6. But yeah, we see how that part ends up, and I guess I don't know. There wasn't really much to it. So outside of like, okay, yeah, this happened. Amadeus didn't trust Jimmy Woo.
Right.
But
So
it didn't really matter.
Right. Like you kind of have to remember that the previous issue had a cliffhanger ending where we were under the impression that Amadeus had been captured and was in dire straits. But what we find out is that that's not exactly the case.
Well, even then, that was kind of alluded to in that last issue, though, that there wasn't, what it seemed.
So ultimately, what we have is a couple of plans being executed, one of which isn't exactly what the rest of the team thinks is actually happening.
Right.
And that's an interesting dynamic that they've introduced prior to the next limited series involving these characters that's spinning out of the event. So there's going to be, for anyone that doesn't know, mild spoilers, that there's going to be an Agents of Atlas book, a 5-issue miniseries coming out of this War of the Realms tie-in miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
And with a slightly pared down cast, apparently, because some characters seem to go their own way in this.
Yes. Which probably makes sense.
Sure, it's a lot of people.
Yeah, and the characters that left, I could see particular issues for them being around much longer than this, given their, I guess, mythical status. I don't know.
Sure.
But yeah, so yeah, that's it. And until I don't have anything else to add outside of that. It was all right. There was some. Actually, I will say it because I just looked at my notes. Yeah, some of the art was kind of weird.
Did you read my notes?
No.
So what I noted is that the issue had a bunch of artists on it.
Yes.
Right. I thought the styles mostly blended together, except for Cindy Moon's 2 different hairstyles. So if you look at it, she's got one hairstyle for when she pops out of hiding to free Braun, aka Amadeus Cho, and another one at the end of the book because there's 2 different artists.
Honestly, that was the least part of that I paid attention to. But
what's funny is that popped out directly to me when I saw that next panel. I was like, wait, that's not the hairstyle she was drawn with before. Because I obviously had picked up very quickly that there were multiple artists on the issue.
Right. So,
but what you're alluding to is something else. It's a more serious concern.
Right, because some of the action scenes looked a little hard to decipher in a couple spots. And I don't have a copy to it. It doesn't matter, but you may have seen what I'm talking about. But even with, like I said, with the art change, there has been some noticeable like perspective shifts in some cases, and things was like, all right, that looks kind of weird. Like not totally off-putting, but just enough to be noticeable.
Sure.
So it kind of took me out of it a little bit, but yeah, knowing that there was a bunch of artists on there, it was like, okay, well, sure.
Right. I mean, there's a couple of weird shots. Like there's a weird shot of a whole bunch of the Agents of Atlas doing a punch.
Exactly.
That's a little weird.
Exactly. That was one in particular.
But like I said, the one that really stuck out to me was that Cindy Moon.
Interesting.
So when you go back and look at it, you'll laugh and be like, of course I would pick up on that.
Like I probably noticed it, but didn't think that much. Like it didn't.
No, that made me turn back. I was like, wait a second.
Because like I said, with the shifts in art, it was like, okay, yeah, clearly all of this is kind of weird all the way around.
I kid you not. When you go back and you see it, it's so drastic. You'll be like, okay, that's what you noticed. So
right.
Anyway, all right, so that's Agents of Atlas. Do you want to talk Punisher and I'll talk Uncanny?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's not much to say about the Punisher one, but it's just like, look, this is the Punisher. There's going to be a lot of killings and whatnot. So if you don't know the story or not, this is Punisher basically had a side thing going on to where I don't remember where this started off, but this.
I know he had to go through the Holland Tunnel.
That basically, yeah, is the whole thing. Is like he had to show basically had an escort mission that was to shuttle some people from a hospital from New York to Jersey. At the same time, there ended up being a bus full of criminals that was commandeered in the process. And the criminals themselves were kind of used to help guard the folks that were wounded and injured or whatnot.
Right, from the trolls and whatnot that were invading.
Exactly.
So.
And given this kind of story, which has played out cinematically, sort of, people start to die. Most specifically, the criminals, and of course, there's a little, a slight bit of underhandedness that ends up happening that quickly gets taken care of, as well as the trolls that they are fighting with. So, Frank had his joint under control. They got to the other end of it, and the last piece of the tie got ended up, and Frank went about his own war. War never ends, changed the way, and leaving people scarred in his wake.
Gotcha.
So you've got
I've got War of the Realms, Uncanny X-Men #3. So this is the last issue of this tie-in limited series. As before, I'll mention that there's a note to long-suffering, and I really mean long-suffering, New York Mets fans who will see a nice ode to one of the current players because they have renamed City Field Fort Cindergaard as humanity's last bastion of hope in New York City, other than Yancey Street, apparently. The X-Men are holding out against hordes of Asgardian invading, not Asgardian, but
Angels.
no. Invaders from the various realms who are on the side of Malekith, and the X-Men have their own little side story where Ilyana Rasputin is an important player as a teleporter, as you would think. She might be, as a magic user and a teleporter, and Sabretooth apparently has decided to switch sides yet again in this miniseries. We, as I mentioned earlier, we have the reappearance of a character that had been previously seen in previous X-Men and New Mutants trips to Asgard. So anyone who's familiar with X-Men and New Mutants history will pick up on that right away. It's someone related to Wolfsbane, Ronnie Sinclair, who's no longer with us in the main book.
I was about to say who's off the table at this point.
Who's no longer with us in the main book. And speaking of being no longer with us, this issue and this series was also written by Matthew Rosenberg, the writer of the current run of Uncanny. And if you've heard me talk about this before, Matt Rosenberg can't help himself but to spoilers. Spoilers, kill another X-Man. Even in a War of the Realms tie-in issue.
I feel like that's probably a directive from on high as much as just him doing it. But, especially given the fact that Hickman's going to do his thing in it next month. And I don't know, maybe they're cleaning the board.
Possibly.
Who knows?
To a certain extent, they've done that already. Because remember, they had gone down to, and believe it or not, it's been a while since this particular story, but remember they had gone down to 198 mutants. Right. So they had already really whittled the board down to a pretty manageable number, but.
Well, yeah, and then, with the human things, I think they had taken out a bunch of stuff prior.
Right. So ultimately, we'll see how Hickman decides to revamp the X-Men, wholesale. So
and I assume surely those ones that are presumed dead are going to come back at some point.
You're about to you just hit on what I just mentioned, because even in this story, the X-Man who bites it actually mentions in the aftermath that there's a strong feeling that character is not going to be gone for long.
Right.
Right. So that being said, that's War of the Realms Uncanny X-Men #3.
Right. Anyway, it doesn't matter because I know that whole Age of X-Men stuff is still kind of out there somewhere. All right. And I believe the only other tie-in we have left.
Thor.
Oh, okay. Then the only other tie-in that we have.
It's Avengers.
Yes, Avengers.
We could talk. Yeah, we could definitely talk about Avengers. We both read it. Go
ahead. So Avengers 20. This is basically going back to the classic loose tie-in of War of the Realms or event tie-in books. In that, it's one of the ones that got alluded to in War of the Realms #6. In that, the front that was dealing with Ulik in Australia. And that pretty much gets wrapped up here. But mostly it is a She-Hulk, aka Hulk-centric Cinder book or issue, which I enjoyed for the most part. Like,
it was good.
Yeah, there was a whole battle literally with her. Well, I guess not literally, but with herself in the beginning of it, which ended up being apparently is a part of her conditioning.
Right, it's an ongoing part of the character story in the Avengers book.
Right, but it was also good to see allusions to past She-Hulks, including the one bit that I didn't think they were going to bring up about let's put it this way, in the in the clickbait section there is an old article I pulled up about some of She-Hulk's exploits. You should go check that out.
Okay.
And one of which they got called by name in this book, which I had almost forgot about, but at the same time, like, yep, I do remember that actually. When she was with the FF.
What's funny is that I know what you're talking about. I don't remember it. I'm gonna have to go look that up. I don't have to look. I have those comics legally digitally. So
yeah, like I said, that article that I said about kind of points to it. Yeah, like I said, it's basically Jen getting to a place, with herself, and actually some commentary on, mirroring some real life commentary about body shaming in the sense, and the actual body shaming actually, and that kind of stuff therein, that the female body forms have to go through, and being accepting themselves and having other people accepting you for what, and so there was a whole big conversation or monologue about that in the story, which was actually pretty cool. And Jen getting into a place within herself, going out for the story. At first, because in reading this, I was like, wait, are they setting her up for a book of her own? Which would be awesome if they did, but I thought if they would give her another book, especially since her current firm kind of came out of her last book, which was good, but
Right. It's interesting. There's one note, and I think it's in here. I'm looking for it now. I'm just kind of scrolling through about how she talks about some of what she has to deal with in her previous, some of what she had to deal with in her previous She-Hulk forms.
Right.
We were all kind of used to with what some of the supervillains used to do and what happened to her during team-ups. And I was like, wow, it's not something that I always thought about.
Right, exactly. No one really thought about that part, But, times were different.
Yeah, exactly. Times are different, and as we've become more woke as a society, we have to understand that this is more than likely something that has happened in the past without much of a comment from us.
Mm-hmm. So. But yet it does finally get a comment, and I thought it was handled fairly decently.
Yeah, I liked it. There was also a part in here about you kind of speaking for the fans,
right?
I
thought that part was like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, as literally trollish as he is supposed to be in this.
Yeah, he is an actual troll.
Right.
Or it's like, well,
he's an actual troll trolling. That's always been a pretty valid argument that he makes. It is.
I'm not going to go to dispute that, but at the same time, hey, we have had different Thors, and nobody blinked an eye until it was a woman. If you think about it.
Yeah, I was about to say yes and no, because they'd always change the names or timelines. Didn't have them at the same times. The only one that's comparable is Beta Ray, but they had always called him Beta Ray Bill and not Beta Ray Thor. They only used that very briefly because Cargo Thor was from the future.
Sure,
that was really the only one that we had.
Like, I get the sentiment. I'm not sitting here.
Right. I mean, I'm just talking from a pure technical. I was like, you know what? I actually understand. I understand why people are manipulating the argument to say something else.
Right.
But from a pure kind of fan, especially for a fan of Thor, who's like, well, you know what? It's kind of weird that that's a legacy, but okay. In any event, I kind of got a kick out of seeing that on the page. And
yeah, I was like, I wasn't expecting to see that get brought up. I was like, okay, sure, yeah, all right. It makes sense how it turned out too. Like, that was a perfect encapsulation.
Sure.
So, it was and it wasn't, because it was like, well, Like She-Hulk's not. The situation was it was She-Hulk going against Thor'ld. She was not really calling herself a Thor, but the fact that got put in there like that was one I kind of out of the blue. But at the same time, she did have a hammer and was dressed kind of whatever. So
Right.
so they were. That was another statement that was being made on, with that. But it wasn't like She-Hulk was calling herself a Thor.
Sure. Bear in mind that Jason Aaron wrote this issue as well.
Exactly.
So this is all related. And just last, I don't know if you have any other points to make. I just wanted to add before we closed out on the discussion on this, was that Daredevil teased upcoming events.
Right. Yeah.
Within the pages of Avengers that happened post War of the Realms.
Right. So which actually what I put in my notes from some of that, or at least what I feel like I gleaned out of. Well, the other thing I was going to say was like, I don't know if Jen actually needed that pep talk from Carol or not, because that one was the one that was kind of seemed like, okay, I get it. Within how the story, within how this issue was going, but at the same time, I was like, all right, I don't know if she actually needed it, but hey, well, sure, why not throw it in there? But yeah, that stuff that was being alluded to by Daredevil was like, yeah, we're clearly going to see that coming on. So, I was like, and the whole thing with Deadpool, which was funny and kind of spot on, because it was like, because Deadpool just kind of came out of nowhere and was like, yeah, you were me before me. I'm like, yeah, she was.
Yep.
So I was like, so I didn't expect that to actually come out in this issue also, but there you go. But yeah, it was like, okay, so the stuff they were to hinting to was like, is the Beyond Corps coming back or is the Beyonder coming back? Because he mentioned something about a war from Beyond or something, and I'm like, wait, is that the Beyonder or is it going to be the Beyond Corps? Which is it going to be? And if that's the case, next wave coming if it's the Beyond Corps? I was like, I just had thoughts. None of that might even be the case. But regard to that was pretty much a Avenger way. So look out for whatever's going to be. Like especially the first one that he mentioned was like the
Hell Race. Yeah.
So we
know that Ghost Rider is
exactly. We knew that was coming up right after coming up close, especially with.
All right. There's a tease of I think I'm presuming that there's going to be some Namor in here because there's the trials. And
that's what I was assuming, because especially given what's going on in Avengers, Invaders, you would think it's going to run back over, but I don't know.
You finally catch up, the events of that book are finally going to catch up to where we are now. And whatchamacallit, the Fury of Khonshu is also mentioned. Like, ooh, Moon Knight.
I know, right? I thought I was like, ooh, what's going to happen with that? Outside of Moon Knight showing up. So. But yeah, so that was a couple little tidbits that was thrown out there, which again will, was happening in War of the Realms also, but this was more directed toward this book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. Now you've got Thor 14.
Right. So Thor 14, very quickly. This is actually a potential click of the week for me. I don't want to spoil too much because Roddykat plans on reading this. I will just mention that it's a tie-in that fills in some unseen moments from War of the Realms #6. Young Thor, god of the Vikings, shows his petulance and eventually, spoiler alert, we find out again what worthiness is all about, Charlie Brown. And also more time travel. I mean, it's the same time travel, but we see another, we just see another moment of it. So.
Sure. Well, which, makes sense because, some coming and some going, I would imagine. But,
yep. And that's Thor #14. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Cool. Then I guess we see if we got probably 1 or 2 more books before we get into the rapid fires.
Sure.
Pick one.
Let me see what's on your list. Let's talk about.
We both read the Spidey stuff. We both read Black Panther.
Do you want to talk about Amazing real quick because it should go quick?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So in Amazing Spider-Man #24, Peter is getting some well-deserved R&R. He's trying to take advantage of some downtime. But the character that I have jokingly referred to as Caterpillar Man, that's really not his name, is back. He's back. And at this point, given some of the hints that have been laid in this book specifically, thanks to an appearance by Mysterio. Something actually happens to Mysterio. I don't think it's permanent in this issue.
Or is it?
I'm willing.
I mean, given
to
that last page, I doubt it. But we don't know what that could mean anything. And also, hey, guess what? There's a movie coming out next week with him in it.
Right. So, like I said, my guess is that it's not permanent. But I'm wondering if this has anything to do with One More Day, given the link to the once dead Mysterio.
That's what I was kind of wondering. I was like, because with that whole part with him and his quote unquote therapist, I'm like, wait a minute. And the character that would be behind all of that is definitely showing up in another book, has been showing up in a couple of different books lately.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then up until what actually happens to Mysterio, I'm like, okay. Or what seemingly happens to Mysterio, I guess we don't know if that.
Yeah, we don't know yet. It's a lot of it off panel. We only see a little bit of the aftermath, so we're still not 100% sure.
It seems to go one way, but but we don't know for certain until next issue.
Or exactly, or until we find out exactly what Mysterio's status is. So, yeah.
Sure. And also we get a name for this character. I don't know if it's going to be the name. Because the basically the most of the issue was literally Mysterio saying, I don't want to say his name, this name, or what his name, whatever, and then the character pops up and like, no, go ahead and say it, and then all of this is going on in a dream sequence, which apparently Peter can also.
And it's Candyman. No, it's not.
I know, right? Like it's Freddy. But no, like wait, so there is already a Sleepwalker character in the Marvel universe. I do know that, and it's not him. But I don't. For some strange reason, I thought about that. I'm like, wait, did Sleepwalker just go evil for some reason, and he's after Spidey?
Right.
But anyway, and then
dressed similarly.
Right, exactly. So I was like, yeah. So we get a name, and then Peter wakes up screaming, and that seemingly ends the issue. So we still don't necessarily know if that name that was mentioned is the name. But if it is, that's a silly name.
Right, because we know what it means.
Right.
Right. It actually has an actual meaning.
Like it could be a red
English language. Right. It could be a red herring.
So we won't know until they decide to unleash that mystery.
Right. So, but that mystery is apparently front and center in upcoming issues of Spider.
Right. And I guess speaking of, since we're on the Spider tip, let's get to the other couple of Spider books.
Well, that and Carnage, apparently.
Oh yeah, there was that last page. I guess in credit scene, or actually, well,
yeah, it is. It's
kind of what it is. Yeah. In credit scene that definitely was about Carnage. I'm like, oh, you're right. That thing's still coming.
Mm-hmm.
Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. You did read that, right?
I skimmed it. I didn't really read it too closely.
Okay. Well, so basically after last issue, Spidey's trying to figure out, what's the tie with the Prowler showing up, and he's going down that route, and it's apparently not what it seemed to be on that front, on that. He pulls Marnie into some action, who we still don't really know a whole lot about. But because she comes into play and helps out, and then they run into the person who seems to be possibly behind some shenanigans, not necessarily the shenanigans, and she seems to know him. But that aside, it's like, okay, there's still some questions to be had about all the situations, put it this way. Right. And there's a little commentary on crowdfunding for, from one Hobie Brown, which, it is what it is. And actually, there was another thing that happened early on in the story that kind of made me think that another character was the Prowler and not Hobie Brown, but apparently that was not the case.
Yeah.
As we quickly found out. So yeah, that's that. And I guess the last Spider-related book of the week, which is apparently a potential click of the week for a couple of folks. That's not the book. Spider-Man Annual #1.
Spider Pig. I mean Spider-Ham, because that actually comes up in the book.
Oh yeah. So this basically this annual is Spider-Ham focused all the way through, and one of them written by Jason Aaron, which we knew was coming.
No, Jason Latour.
Jason Latour, excuse me. You're right. I always do that one too. Weirdly enough, at CuriosCon they sit right next to each other. So just call it the Jason table. Yeah.
Wow.
Or at least usually I didn't go this year, but so I don't know. But yeah, usually they're right there right beside each other. And like Rick Renzi is on the other side of Latour. Anyway,
man, talk about getting your autographs all in one spot.
Right?
They have to manage the lines around there.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, like Aaron's. I remember one year, I think a couple of years ago, Aaron's line was fairly lengthy, and Latour's was obviously with Spider-Gwen stuff. Yeah, their lines were equally kind of gonna. But then like the next year, and Aaron was doing like whatever Thor stuff, so his line was popping off for a couple of things.
I believe.
And and Aaron, still had some good lines, but it was like he didn't have.
Right, because he was probably just
there was some fluctuations.
Yeah, I was about to say he's probably neck deep in Thor stuff and his indie creator stuff. So
right, and so but still people, and obviously he's kind of local, so it's like whatever. But regardless, Spider-Man Annual, Latour, Spider-Pig, puns galore.
So lots of I was about to say lots of tie-ins with old Spider-Ham stuff that we've known if you'd even previous
right. And for the folks who don't really know, which granted this has come up even as recently as Into the Spider-Verse, and you get a little blurb about his origin, which still is weird to me, even in a comic sense. But you could tell Latour had fun writing this, and I think I know he's been on Twitter, like for a month or two, talking about this issue coming up. So, and we also know that a panelist, even without reading this, a panelist of ours was going to enjoy this issue one way or the other. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot to it, and it was kind of hard to read in a couple of spots because there was just a lot on the page, and in some cases, lettering wise, because the jokes kind of broke that fourth wall, especially with the backup story. But that's it. Like it was just a pretty fun read, once you get through it. So I don't know if you got anything else to add to that, but that was pretty much it for me.
Yeah, the final story, which was written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, with Jason Latour. If those first two names sound familiar to you, they should, because as Roddykat just mentioned, those two gentlemen were the writers of Spider-Verse, Into the Spider-Verse, the movie. That is, and
it's like a movie, So.
What's that?
I say, and the Lego movies,
right. So that being said, that last issue, the last story was definitely a little bit of reality bending going on. Some cartoon reality bending going on, especially.
Some would say a little on the nose in a couple of spots, especially what we talk about.
Right. So, there's an appearance by Howard the Duck, and ultimately, it's kind of funny that there is a character that is judging reality. It's very Justice League right now. That's the reference that I got.
Well, there's that in the Watcher Dog.
Well, that too, yeah.
And of course, Meows Morales.
Oh, God.
And even they said it was like, that's a stretch. That's a little torture, but that's like, you know what? I appreciated it. I liked it.
His uncle secretly the Growler. So
yeah.
anyway.
Oh yeah, he didn't even know it. It's like what? And I was like, oh, never mind. And of course, in the front story, there was Spider-Ham and of course Spider-Gwen, Penguin. Get it?
Yeah.
As they went along in their.
That's not the first appearance of Spider.
No, it is not. But
yeah.
But the fact that she showed up, which again, I know Latour kind of, this has been talking about that with relation to this to the story. So there is plenty of Spider-Gwen to go around.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I actually just like I mentioned earlier, this is another book I plan to pick up. I plan to pick up a copy of that I did not pick up on Wednesday with my comics. So I plan on getting Spider-Man Annual #1 because I had a blast reading this.
Yeah, it was an interesting. Like I said, there's still a lot on the page art wise, but it was still a pretty good read with all of that. I think so unless you got another book you want to throw out, I think we could go into.
No, we can go rapid fire because we talked about a lot of books because War of the Realms wrapped up in a big way this week.
Do it.
All right, I'm gonna spin it up right about. All right. Let me start because I've got a lot to go through.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's see. I'm going to start with Batman Damned #3. Pardon me, I am not rapping because the rapper who does this bit in his song isn't actually rapping. He's just kind of singing along. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish the Joker was still alive. And that's that for the opening book from DC's Black Label Publishing.
Yeah, that book's still coming out. Go figure.
So that's the end of that. Do you want to talk Black Panther #13 very quickly?
Sure.
So the only thing that I noted in this is that spoilers, contact with Earth. Now that T'Challa seems to have his memories back.
Yeah, that's in which we've said coming out of last issue. Like, yeah, there seemed to be wrapping stuff back into getting back to, or at least very least contacting back to Earth. And surely enough, it happened in the midst of a fight between him and M'Baku.
Of course.
The struggle, of course. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, next up, Doctor Strange #15. I think you read this as well.
I did.
So
we just talked about is front and center here.
Yeah, so spoiler alert again. Doc makes a bargain with who else? Mephisto, to gain the freedom of Clea and Umar. Ask Spidey how that seems to work out.
I know, right? And clearly that's going to, as the book actually said, that's going to come up later.
Sure.
So that must be. I'm kind of wondering with all this because, like I said, this is not the first book that he's shown up in because Champions this. Been some allusions to a couple of stuff this week. Like, is there another event that's coming up? Because we know, last time we saw him was Damnation, and then
he's been in the background
and still claiming the hell is his, or
at least another part of it. Or
yeah, I guess so. Right. So that part's still kind of weird, but yeah.
Right, because
I guess that's the part we might see, and we'll probably see some of that in Avengers, I guess.
Right. I'm glad you mentioned that because we're going to see the current ruler of Hell, Johnny Blaze, very soon in the pages of Avengers. So we'll see if how Mephisto fits into that puzzle will come up sooner rather than later. The last thing I wanted to note is that forces our marshal to confront mystically powered Galactus. Next up,
that one, yeah, that'll actually come up again because that seemed like an event in itself. That's all I'll say about that. It was like, really, you get all these people together, some of which doesn't make sense. Like, why is the Hulk there? Like, I get he's a defender. I get it.
I kind of guessed it, but then no Namor. So,
well, exactly. But there's been other defenders there, and actually, this clearly takes place before War of the Realm and what's going on in Guardians because you see Valkyrie there. And Nova, not Nova. Well, Nova actually, yeah, you do see him there. But
I think Sam Alexander's in there.
I don't know if that was him or Richard Rider. That is not really clear from the perspective. It seemed like because he looks a little bit thinner than Richard would be.
No, costume. I think costume gave it away. I'm just gonna scroll through it real quick.
Yeah, because it's like two panels. You'll see
the costume gives it away because it's a dark costume.
Well, I thought
No, because he doesn't have the gold highlights all around.
Okay. Well, I didn't pay that close attention to it. So you're
I saw it. Yeah, I was about to say I saw that right away. So
right, but you see people that are weirdly there, and you didn't think it was like Firelord shows is there on the panel, like
Eden is there. Whatchamacallit?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, wait, why? Like, I get it. Okay,
Isn't he lost in space with T'Challa right now? What?
Exactly. So I was like, wait a minute. Like this, like, all right, like then he's a teleporter, and I think he already had his memories back. But regardless, still, like, when did this happen? But clearly, like I said, this takes place before all that. But you know what? Enough about that because we'll get into it next week.
Sure. It's like, hello, Black Bolt.
Right.
Anyway, next up, Fantastic Four number 11, potential click of the week again. Potential click of the week again. I read a lot of fun books this week. This was super fun. It retcons a completely new government agency into the Marvel Universe. Unlike last week, the fact that there are 4 artists on this issue is barely noticeable, as the styles were fairly consistent with each other.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Next up is Magnificent Miss Marvel number 4. We talked about this?
We've talked about it prior because I think I was skimming through it when.
Okay, so we did talk about it.
We didn't talk about it.
Oh, we did not. Okay. Yeah, because you were reading right before the show.
Right.
So we find out more about Cheb Hura, the alien that Kamala befriends, and the dynamics of the planet she's landed on. That's pretty much what we get out of this issue.
Yeah, and we get a little bit of Kamala asserting herself in front of her parents because even the inner monologue, that the inner narration that we get, it's like she's trying to tell her own story, but sometimes she doesn't get to because other people are doing it, and then she finally, asserts herself a little bit more with that. So yeah, that's basically it. Then we get some folks at the end that come in,
right?
Who slightly remind me of Spider-Pig, but
All right. And last for me, believe it or not, I've talked about a lot of books this week. I got a lot of reading in because there were a number of books that came out this weekend. I read my physical copies I picked up from my comic shop, as well as our review copies. And this is a book I'm about to talk about that I plan on getting a physical copy of, having read our review copy. That being Wolverine Exit Wounds number 1. There's 3 fun stories in this. I read this literally right as we were getting ready to start recording. They're told by classic Wolverine creators, especially Larry Hama and Chris Claremont. Even the quirky Sam Keith art hasn't looked this good in ages. I'm going to go pick this up as a physical copy.
Nice.
So I'm heading to pick up 2 additional books this week as physical copies, having read review copies of them. That's a good thing.
Cool. So since you've gone over everything that I've read and I don't have anything else, I wanted to read Ghostbusters Transformers book that came out there, but maybe I'll do something about that this weekend.
Okay, so we're good.
So clicks of the week.
Clicks of the week.
So we already got 2 from our absent members. One of which I am proud to say I knew way ahead of time.
Assuming he read it, right?
No, well, it didn't even matter. It didn't even matter. I was like, either he was going to read it or eventually read it, and it was going to be the case. But apparently he did. So, which was Dirt's click of Spider-Man Annual number 1, which is why the asterisk was there, because I put it not before knowing whether he had actually read it and seen it or not.
Right. Well before.
Yes.
All right.
And for Tim's was War of the Realms number 6.
Right. And that is a strong candidate for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still thinking, though, because I had a lot of fun reading a bunch of books this week, but I think I'm going to also go War of the Realms number 6 because, not afraid to admit this is the first book off the stack that I read because I needed to find out what happened.
Same here. Yeah. Because I was going to teeter. I was like, well, should I read since Avengers 20 was like a tie-in and its ending, and like, is this going to be before the ending more than likely? Should I read that first, or should I just go ahead and read War of the Realms 6?
Right.
Which ended up being the right call to read 6. I think I think I might actually go with Avengers 20. War of the Realms. I did enjoy that immensely, and it was a satisfying, well, a semi-satisfying read, because obviously what I said earlier would kind of contradict that a little bit. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I would really like a She-Hulk book again. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I mean, I was afraid they were going to like depower her in this issue for some kind of way, but it sounds like that might be something that's coming along later, if those illusions are to be believed or to be taken anything out of. But regardless, that's it. So yeah, Flicks of the Week, folks, and with that, we will hit an ad read. The first ad read of the night.
Our first ad read of the night is for Funko, Fun at First Sight. It's your home for exclusive collectibles, such as their world-famous pop vinyl bobbleheads, apparel, t-shirts, hats, and socks, and brand merchandise, including custom DIY pop figures, art books, and skateboards. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy 10% off your entire purchase when shopping at Funko. To place your first order with 10% off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Funko link and place your order. When you get to the checkout, put in the offer code SHOP10 for your 10% off discount. Funko through cspn.us. Do it today.
Apparently, Funko's got a photo challenge going on at the time of this recording that will end July 10th. So that's neat. Go check that out. Now, cinematic news. And we start off with some Spider-Verse news, which, by the way, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is on Netflix. That is not the news, but it is news. But the actual news is that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is definitely getting a sequel, according to producer Amy Pascal.
Okay.
Says it's official. The animated fit will have a follow-up. Cool. I hope they don't screw it up. And by screw it up, I mean, you know, sometimes people have the tendency like, all right, more of this is great, but let's more of this and just add way too much more to it. Because it was a damn near perfect movie, I would dare say. And I don't say that often or that lightly either. So, I don't know. But hey, guess what? It's already on Blu-ray stuff and whatever, and it's on Netflix, so you can go check it out for yourself. See if you agree or disagree. If you don't agree, then keep that to yourself. Next up,
because the internet is full of opinions.
Shit, exactly. Assholes.
You can watch Avengers Endgame's epic final battle in 16-bit animation. So there's a big battle. No surprise, no real spoilers there. In Avengers Endgame, and someone has taken the time to animate it using 16-bit animation. So you can follow the link in our show notes and look at that video.
I feel like there's an internet rule for that, but I don't know what it is. Next up, speaking of Avengers Endgame, it just broke an Avatar box office record because it was coming for it.
This is a legit record that it broke.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
In its first release, we're not talking about the upcoming re-release.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So the Endgame's worldwide box office total hit a gigantic amount over the past weekend, as of this recording. This surpasses Avatar's original theatrical run, which was slightly less, not by much. There was the decimal places are the same, but you know there's only a few dollars of amounts different.
Yeah, it's like a couple of 100,000, I think.
Exactly. So,
which is no small potatoes.
It is absolutely not, but still, you know,
that's several, probably 100 theaters worth of people. So
exactly. So you know what? I would like to have this total in my bank account. I don't know about you. So yeah, so that's the thing, and again, as Agent 70 said, yes, it is getting a theater run again.
Right. It's going to be re-released this weekend. I think we talked about it last week.
We did.
This weekend, the last weekend in June, is going to be the first weekend of the Avengers re-release. So that money total is going to continue to go up. I should be contributing to it myself sometime this weekend.
You know what? Or you can wait till July 30th and get Avengers Endgame on Blu-ray.
No, down with Avatar.
I mean, that money's, the money's gonna go to the same place. And
down with Avatar.
Okay. So, well, and we're not talking about The Last Airbender.
I want to see Avengers Endgame on that list on Box Office Mojo.
Once again, the money's going to the same place, so it really doesn't matter. So,
well, the Avatar money's already been made.
I mean, that is also true, but still, ultimately,
at this point, yeah.
So, but like I said, Avengers is going to be on digital Blu-ray on July 30th, which I believe the 30th is digitally. Yeah, July 30th is digitally and Blu-ray on August 13th.
Right, it's like two weeks later.
Yeah, which is normally the case. And shortly before my birthday.
Right. So, is it all right if I take the next one?
So there's going to be a bunch of stuff which you'll probably see on the bonus features, and they lined up here. You can go check that out and whatnot, and probably some of that stuff I got a feeling you'll probably see in this next showing. So yeah, next one.
Yeah, this is weird. So Marvel Comics writer Donny Cates says fans should want Keanu Reeves in the role of Shang-Chi.
And I say no.
No.
And I'm not saying that because he probably would do a decent job, but I also think, but my thing is, well, okay, first of all, well, no, I'll just go ahead and say we get to what Kate says about it. Like it feels like typecasting. It's stunt casting. And come on, he's already done that with his own books, his own set of movies. You don't need to do that. That's not necessarily, I don't know if that's why Cates is saying that. Like he's probably saying, well, you know what, let's see what he says. So he put out a tweet, says that someone who spent 4 hours in a room with Keanu Reeves breaking story, it's quite a story. I can tell you that the role you want him in is Shang-Chi. Trust me. So we don't necessarily know what that means outside of the fact that, okay, yes, Donny Cates met Keanu. They had a rapid taste about it, and apparently that tweet that was put out there is gone now.
Okay.
So something happened to happen. But so yeah, we talked about last week. There's been rumors of people wanting, people doing fantasy casting for Marvel movies, in addition to the fact that Marvel's been going out there and saying, yeah, they've been trying to cast them and stuff, not up and including the Eternals movie, which they're trying to cast right now. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I wholly disagree with the fact, regardless of whatever Kate heard in whatever room they were in, which I'm sure was great. No.
Yeah, I disagree with this. So
again, I don't say he. Sure, we know he has martial arts training. We know this. We know he has done movies with some of the beginnings of his training, I guess. That doesn't necessarily, and yes, he's a big star at this point, and has been for quite a minute. It doesn't necessarily mean he needs to be Shang-Chi.
Moving on.
Yes.
President Bartlett.
What's next?
Watch Boba Fett straight up murder someone in this animated short. So,
you mean he actually did something?
I mean,
oh no!
Dude. Hey, look, you've seen Clone Wars. You've seen.
I know, but it makes me laugh when people of a certain vintage will remember everyone wanted a Boba Fett action figure.
Some still do.
In fact, he didn't do a damn thing in the movie.
He showed up. He looked cool as hell. And Vader had to warn him, no disintegrations. Well, that was later on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, and he did end up doing something later on in the prequels, but he also got chumped in the original trilogy. So, but people still, still stand badass Boba Fett. But yes, so unless you've seen like Clone Wars, where he actually did do some things, and we saw an arc within itself, and this digital short, which apparently is on the Star Wars Kids channel. And I think this is one of those, Galaxy of Adventure shorts. But I don't know if it's tied to this one. This may not be tied to the movie. But regardless, go check it out because it's nice. It's cool looking, and it looks like it's in Coruscant. So I don't think it has anything to do with the movie.
Okay.
I don't know. I have not watched it myself, so I don't know. Next
up, just 3 whole weeks into its wide release, Dark Phoenix, the final film in 20th Century Fox's mainline X-Men series, is apparently already being pulled from cinemas nationwide because it's not making any money.
That's even for X-Men movies. That's not good.
Just go away for a while, X-Men movies, until the MCU can finally reboot you.
Well, I was about to say that they wanted to get that one out of the way before the quickening, the merger happened. Right.
And still, New Mutants is out there.
New Mutants is out there. Correct. So wow, how bad do you have to screw up the highlights commenting on your stuff? That's wow. Anyway, that is not the purview of this here of this year's show, but man. Anyway, Danzig's Vertigo film gets a release date. Now, you might be wondering, why in the world are we talking about Danzig? Some of you might be wondering, who the hell is Danzig? If you're not of a certain vintage. And believe me, I know the name. I don't really know him all that well. But regardless,
I've heard it. That's all I can say.
Yeah, so according to Dateline, Vertigo, which is a film scheduled for October 31st, is a Halloween-themed VOD released by Cleopatra. It's based on characters. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know what happened, and this has not happened before. Well, this has happened before. Regardless, so it's based off of characters from his long-running cult comic book company, Vertigo. Vertigo is a horror anthology film written, directed, and scored by Danzig. So Danzig is an old, if I'm not mistaken, old goth rocker.
Rocker, that's what I remember.
Yes, and we'll leave it at that because even if you're of a certain vintage, you would know that name, but you may or may not know the music.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're not of a certain vintage and texture. Next up.
All right, next up, Thor Ragnarok director Taika Waititi has been tapped to helm the big screen reboot, an animated reboot of Flash Gordon. So the new film is animated, and he's also set to write the script for the film as well. Cool.
So yeah, that ought to be interesting. What happened to my camera?
We all right, know what happened to Roddykat's camera.
Yeah, that's weird because of screen sharing. Anyway, moving right along. Sorry about that, folks. I'm just going to take the focus off and say that Batman. By the way, it is the 30th anniversary of the 1989 Tim Burton film Batman.
Right, it was like 3 or 4 days ago.
Yep, and arguably one of the best. Well, in a lot of cases, for some people, the best Batman. I would be one of the numbers that would agree with that personally. Returns aside, because. But anyway, so Kim basically.
It's hard to say. All the Batman movies have taken some liberties with the story, but I think though the original Keaton Batman was fairly spot on.
Yes, especially if you're if you're, I guess some would say the Batman is almost like your first Mario Kart, like your first one is your favorite, which is not always the case with Batman movies, but you can kind of make that argument. Now, granted, that was not the first for. I would argue that was not the first for either one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up with
66, yeah.
66, yeah, but nevertheless, it still kind of holds a place for some folks. But yeah, I agree with your sentiment though. It's like, yeah, the 80 man, 89 man, especially with, at the time you had Michael Keaton, Mr. Mom.
That's right.
A totally a comedic actor, or at least so we thought of at the time, because he went on to do some more serious stuff later on and going back and forth. You've seen him in Spider-Man Homecoming, which you can play a villainous type role.
Sure.
He brought some of that same intensity to the role back in 98.
Sure. Yeah, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Which again, yeah, was a crazy pick back in the day, but it's like, you know what? All right, we'll see how this works. And he was great. Like some would say, like, and matter of fact, I had this conversation of probably a few weeks back when I was on another podcast. Like, some people can do a good Bruce Wayne, some people can do a good Batman. You can't see me with my hand gestures; it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of people who could do both, even now. Keaton was probably the closest. Like, yeah, he was a little more animated,
sure,
with his, but still, it worked.
Right. And you couldn't, and I thought that, thinking back on it, Burton played with it a little bit, because what we all assume is that Bruce Wayne is this handsome dude that's immediately recognizable to pretty much anybody in the DC universe. And there's literally a scene in the movie where Vicky Vale is like, "Can you point me out to which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne?" To Bruce Wayne,
right?
So,
yes, but to that aside, which was not the actual article that we were pointing to, but speaking of Vicky Vale, that was a nice little segue. I think you meant to do that. Kim Basinger, that is, discusses the one line that would never work today. That was not a double negative. I did not mean to say that. And that line was, if you've seen Batman 89, and there was a particular scene where they was hanging off of a bat rope, a bat line, and Batman asks how much she weighs, which, that's a rule thing to say, ask for a lady, I'm sure.
Although it did make sense at the time.
Exactly. It was relevant. And she spits out a number, which ends up to be not the case. And after the action, prevailing action gets sorted out, then Batman calls her out on it, basically. So this is an article for talking to Kim Basinger, saying that that whole thing wouldn't happen like that nowadays, because there's body shaming issues and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Which wasn't around back then.
Right. Although,
and it wasn't like she was that, she was like that big back then. But,
but what I was going to say is, to be fair, story-wise, it kind of made sense.
Oh yeah, totally.
It wasn't a body shaming thing. It was a life or death. We're hanging on a bat line that's only designed up to a certain.
Well, right, but even stuff like that would have been a little bit more noticeable nowadays than back then. So that's pretty much all that was. Sure. But that being said, hey, like we said previously, Batman 30th, go watch it. It's a great movie.
I mean, Batman the animated series, his bat lines could hold up at least 2 people. So come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, but nobody's going to talk too much ish about the animated series outside of the fact of Joker and Harley's relationship, which is deserved. But
Oh, Mr. J.
But hey, we wouldn't have gotten Harley if it wasn't for that show.
Sure. Last but not least,
unless I have seen Titan story, which I'm not going to do.
In some sad news.
Yes.
We had announced previously that the Mouse Guard movie had been canceled by Disney in the wake of the Disney-Fox merger. It had been originally a Fox movie, and once the merger was announced as being official, Disney went ahead and canceled the movie, much to the chagrin of fans, and much to the shock of people who had been working on this movie for quite a while now, because it was getting ready to go into production.
And much the consternation of you.
Oh yeah. So the movie is now officially, unfortunately, dead because it's been shopped to various film studios, and there have been no takers. So producers on the movie have announced it, and announced on Twitter, and released some footage of the demo reel, which shows what could have been. So I definitely suggest you go out to Twitter and look up Wes Ball. He's the man behind the Maze Runner and several other movies, and he was trying to get Mouse Guard off the ground, and there's a sizzle reel of test footage that looks beautiful, looks amazing. Really, my only, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I actually replied that I would have hoped that the final animation, this is just sizzle stuff, the final animation would be slightly more faithful to the source material, and would have made the mice in Mouse Guard a little chubbier and a little furrier, so that they were cuter. That's really how David Peterson renders the mice in the comics. So other than that really small quibble that would hopefully have been finished in post-production, the sizzle reel just shows a movie that had so much potential, with turtles or tortoises that were walking cities. Oh my gosh, that's so wonderful. Did you see it, Roddy?
The demo reel, yes.
Yeah. Oh, so it looks so good.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, so, and like I was saying earlier beforehand, I'm like, maybe by the fact that this is out there, maybe it's, there'll be some renewed interest in it, and I would like to believe that's probably why they put it out. But at the same time, you see this happening and stuff like, yeah, this is not going to happen, so here's what I had for it.
Sure.
That just generally happens, but hopefully, maybe some renewed interest will come out of it. It is really tough.
Did you see the great studio space that they had too? There was another clip.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so if you look at the tweet, if you look at the tweet, there's a video clip of the studio space that they had worked on, and some of the images that they had set up, and some toys I guess they had created demos for, and some stand-up figures that they had made demos of. So if you go back to Twitter and look that up, it's really cool looking. They had such a beautiful space.
Oh, and apparently in this article, Gary Whitta, who is notable for a few people's reviews, also the writer of Rogue One, posted he's posting his complete Mouse Guard screenplay, so even if people can't see the movie, they can at least see what it wrote.
Okay.
So you can go check that out on his tweet, which is linked to in the article that is in our show notes.
Gotcha.
And it looks like that other tweet might have been taken down by Wes Ball, or at least a picture of it, because I don't, Anyway, regardless, we'll get more on that later.
Really?
That is it. Well, yeah, because I clicked the link that was in the article, and the picture that was attached to it is gone. So I don't know. So I don't know if the link itself is gone or just the pic. Or it might have been or it might not be gone, and maybe that was an issue with when they attached the tweet.
Mm-hmm.
That is always possible. Anyway, that is a mystery for another.
Oh, because he didn't ask for permission to post the stuff.
Oh, okay. Is that what happened?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay. Well, there you go. Mystery solved. So now we go on to the comic book news.
All right, we're going to transition.
All right, that was it. So there is on Kickstarter at this point, which I don't believe it has made it, is a comic book anthology called Shots Fired, a gun violence prevention comics anthology. And it gives the stat that 96 people are killed with guns in the U.S. every day. We know about some of these things we should do for this, to prevent this, but solutions may still be found. Organizations like Coalition to Stop Gun Violence and the Community Justice Reform Coalitions are working to change that, and you can help. And all proceeds from said this anthology, which is being written and arted, that's not a word. Basically, they're created by a bunch of comic book notables and being published through Comic Press. All of the proceeds will go through the two organizations that was just mentioned, and they are they're about a third of the way there at this time of recording. So if you're interested in going to check that out, that will also be in the show notes.
Okay.
And like I said, there's a lengthy list of creators that are, and like I said, a lot of notables that you may be interested in and checking out. Next up,
some somewhat sad news, although we know it's probably not a permanent thing. Marvel's current Doctor Strange volume is canceled with issue number 20. It's this September's issue. Marvel's going to bring its latest Doctor Strange series to an end. In the September solicits, the description for Mark Waid and Jesus Saiz's issue confirms that it's going to be the last one, and it says this event is so huge, that it makes this the last issue of Doctor Strange, the synopsis declares. However, it doesn't give any other details and simply calls it an event so epic that it shakes Doctor Strange to the core and makes him completely reevaluate his life and role.
Because he hasn't been doing that the last couple of volumes.
Sure.
And given like what we said earlier, with the issue 15 that's out, yeah, we can see where it's starting to ramp up. It actually escalated, not necessarily quickly, but a bit with what's going on there, which I don't think, did we even talk about that? Well, we did talk about, but we didn't get knee deep in it. So, going for it. Next up, Marvel reveals retailer discounts as Absolute Carnage #1 aims for 8+ million copies. So here's an amusing fact about this article from Newsarama. I'm slightly calling them out. When this was first tweeted about, and actually in the article, the title said Marvel reveals retailer discounts as American Carnage #1 aims.
Ouch.
Yes, which I'm saying, because when I first saw the tweet, I'm like, well, that's clearly a tweet typo. I was like, no, it's in the article also, and it was in the article before they went and changed it shortly thereafter. So I was thinking, I was like, wait, American Carnage is the Brian Edward Hill book that he's writing for DC. Wait, did they actually get that from Marvel somehow? What's going on with that? Nope. Turns out it was about this Carnage event that's coming up next. I won't see you next month, but in August, I think that's when that's. So apparently they're trying to blow it out. Wait, it's not even Oscars. I'm sorry. The first one is coming out soon. I don't really care about Carnage, so it really doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Regardless, it's the thing that's coming up, and they're trying to order big. They want orders to be big for it.
Listen, people love Venom.
Yeah.
People love Deadpool too, and I'm just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, same. And yeah, so basically, this article is basically what the publisher is trying to offer retailers in the ordering of said book. Like, I like Donny Cates. I don't love the character, so I don't. Whatever. Next up.
Yeah, he thinks it's going to outsell X-Men #1 from 1993. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to outsell X-Men #1 that's coming out next month.
Alrighty. Next up, Star Wars: Age of Rebellion. Darth Vader pits Animal Vader. No, that's a Muppet Babies reference, folks. Against the challenge from the Emperor.
I missed that. That was actually good episode.
It was one of the best.
I love that episode.
One of the best.
If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it's out there. Just YouTube Muppet Babies Star Wars. I'm sure it's probably that whole thing's probably out there somewhere. But regardless, so yeah, this is the Age of Rebellion book that came out this week actually that I didn't get a chance to read because I kind of took a break from starting to from reading some of that stuff.
There's a lot this week though, so I don't blame you for.
There was a couple of Star Wars specifically Vader related books this week.
Yeah. But my point is, there was a lot to read this week.
Well, yeah, just in general.
We're talking it's kind of like the pre-July 4th release, the pre-holiday release, because there was a ton of books that came out this week. Especially with War of the Realm stuff. So I don't blame you for not being able to get to that.
Right, and then I guess I'm about to say it's not technically a 5th week, but you might as well say so. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's a one shot. Vader travels back in time. Wait. Oh, the one shot. It's like Jimmy travels back in time to before A New Hope and focuses on that era. That era of Vader, and some things happen. Like I said, and this is an article with Greg Pak talking about that. I hadn't read it yet. I keep saying I'm gonna do something about some of those books. Whether you should check those out or not, but I haven't been lazy. I've been pretty lazy about it. Next up, Marvel Hero Tales helps kids learn to read by creating comic books. So this is a cool thing I happen to come across. It says video game developer Koatu Studios has unveiled Marvel Hero Tales, a new literacy app that taps Marvel's most popular superheroes to help kids learn to read.
Wow.
The app was created by Koatu Studios, like I just said, and Marvel Entertainment, which are targeting kids ages 7 to 11. The app's content will be updated regularly according to the developer with new storylines and characters. I'm probably going to check this out myself. I'm not in that age range, but well, some would say I'm not anyway. But anyway, learning is more fun more fun than ever thanks to its increasingly available apps. This is the article I'm trying to get to. Let's see. Here we go. Marvel Hero Tales, as the name suggests, revolves around Marvel stories featuring popular characters. This is pretty much going by what they said, including Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel. Kids get to create their own comic books through the app. Okay, which encourages the users to personalize the experience through a narrative action system. So that's cool, and I'm probably going to actually check it out. Maybe we'll talk about it next time we record. I'll check it out. But it sounds cool regardless of what they're saying in this article. So, next up.
The MCU Cosmic Brothers, Collector and Grandmaster, are getting exclusive San Diego Comic-Con Marvel Legends figures.
I'm so glad you got this one.
Hasbro has unveiled its exclusive Marvel Legends release for Comic-Con International. 2-pack of the Marvel Cinematic Universe versions of Collector and Grandmaster.
And if my video was working, you would be able to see said thing. But regardless,
they're pretty good likenesses.
Yes, picture MCU versions of Grandmaster
Jeff Goldblum and Benicio del Toro.
Exactly.
The likenesses are pretty spot on.
Mm-hmm. And there you have. So one friend of the show, Matt Wang, which is a pretty funny aside on this, just happened to let us know. Actually, I think I might have seen this before he mentioned it. But like I said, he kind of mentioned it to us online and had a nice idea of Agent 70 getting these.
I declined. I respectfully declined, but I definitely.
But that. Well, at least on his idea, he has a Stingray appreciation. We still don't. We need to get him up for that. But the Contest of Champions diorama. Think about it.
We definitely appreciate the thought, but that's pretty cool that we do have. Shout out to @MattWang97 on Twitter, friend of the show who is regular at the San Diego Comic-Con scene, so he can help us sometimes get the exclusive.
Yeah, sadly I won't be a part of it this year, but it'd be all right. Hopefully. Jada Toys. Oh, wait, this is you.
No.
Oh, is it?
I read the Collector and Grandmaster.
Okay, sorry, I'm confused now.
It's all right, go ahead.
Distraught. Jada Toys brings a new Batmobile to Comic-Con. So picture the Batman the animated series version with Batman figure with it, and there you go. It looks nice. Yeah, it looks kind of nice. Weirdly enough, it looks silver in this picture, but that's only because of perspective and the lighting.
What scale is it?
Let's see. It says a 1/24 scale.
Oh, I see. It's a kind of metallic looking. Huh?
Mm-hmm. But it looks nice though.
Oh, it's crafted in die-cast metal with this
Yes.
slick black chrome finish. Okay.
As Optimus said in Beast Wars, it's a lost art.
That's cool.
Making a die-cast metal joke. Anyway,
yeah, 124. So it's a small. It's on the smaller side.
Yeah, and it's going to retail for $50 and limited to 300 pieces. So if you are at the show and you care to see this, care to check this out, you go for it because it looks good.
Pretty cool.
And and the that's the Batmobile, and it comes with a 2.75-inch Batman figure, who almost looks like he's doing a dab, but he's actually looks like he's just starting to run. Next up,
in some sad news, after 26 years and several reshuffles and reboots later, including one that happened just last year, DC Entertainment has announced that its legendary adult-focused imprint Vertigo has been closed as part of a rebranding and restructuring of its imprint divisions. So as of January 2020, Vertigo is going bye-bye.
Right. Also worth noting, which still bothers me, one, we know the Black Label thing is a thing. Like, why couldn't that have just been Vertigo instead of Black Label? We don't know. But one thing to note from this article that the Harder Reporter says that the end of this, while this is the end of DC's permanent imprints, pop-up, quote-unquote, limited-time ones like Jarrett Way's Young Animal or Warren Ellis's The Wildstorm imprint will still continue to exist. Why?
Okay.
Why? That's what I'm saying. Well, why? I don't know if nothing really came out of that Young Animal stuff. And I don't even know what's going on with that Wildstorm stuff, but it's, that's a separate thing. I believe we still don't know what's going on with that Milestone stuff either. But regardless, no, that's for some time later. Mr. Miracle, Nubia, Johnny Constantine, Amethyst, other titles joined DC's young adult and middle grade offering. So basically a bunch of middle school aged books are coming from those imprints, which apparently, I guess those are still going strong. It's just Vertigo that did it. Right.
It's a reshuffling. So, right.
But it's kind of also already separate from a lot of stuff anyway. This one was a more the Zoom book prints and whatnot. I can't remember the name of the other ones. Has a more scholastic bend to it, so that's why. But yeah, so there's going to be a bunch of books. Let's see, Diana Princess of the Amazons. There's a Green Lantern book. There's a Batman tale. There's a Zatanna book, and a bunch of other stuff with other characters. I won't go through all of that. So yeah, stuff to check out if you have a middle school age folk, or if you're an older folk that just happens to like to read stuff. I mean, we know the young adult thing has been a thing for quite a while, so ain't no shame in an adult reading in young adult title.
Okay. Next up, writer Steve Orlando returned to Wonder Woman this week for a one-shot issue that fits into the title's current story by G. Willow Wilson, but has a peek at continuities of the past and a flashback to Diana's youth. So this was in Wonder Woman number 73 this week.
Yes. So, and yeah, this was the article with Steve Orlando about that issue and working with G. Willow and all that kind of good stuff. I haven't read it because I haven't been up on the Wonder Woman stuff. Next up, Leviathan just recruited a classic DC C-list hero. One that I have no idea who this is. So apparently in Action Comics from this week or last week?
10/12?
Yeah. Is that this week? It's probably already out if this is out. And if it is not, who cares? But so the hero Rose.
Yeah, that's this week.
Okay. The hero Rose, who also had an alternate name of Thorn, I guess was the alter ego, was recruited by Leviathan. And I guess this character was like some sort of vigilante in her alternate form. I want to say I wanted to say think Typhoid Mary, but that's probably not right. Regardless, it's someone, I'm sure Dirt or someone of that ilk probably knows who that is and will be like, this is awesome.
People who are more up on their DC content.
Yes, so. and especially the deep cuts like this seems to be, because this seems like a deep cut. And this article kind of goes into her backstory just a little bit and theories therein. Next up.
All right. So, yeah, last story for the night. This coming July, Dark Horse Comics will be bridging the gap between seasons 1 and 2 of the Orville, the Seth MacFarlane television show, by releasing a brand new comic book centered around the adventures of the Orville.
Still not better than this Discovery, you bastards. Oh.
Okay, there's some meta commentary from Roddykat.
I don't know who said that. I can't imagine. Actually, I haven't even finished this Discovery. Actually, I haven't watched any Orville at all. I know people like it. But yeah, so it's going to be a comic book regardless. I don't.
All right.
I don't really have much horse in that race. So, and that is the end of our news section. And therein the end of the story. But first, one nice ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is for Wink, the personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Thor'ld, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Have you ever tried an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your tastes and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today.
And as I sit here trying to, and I actually should have muted myself when I did that, trying to futz with my camera, which is still not working, is going to make the end of this that much lovelier. We'd like to thank you for coming out for this here show. I'm going to assume, unless we let you know on the Ultra Media, because I'm thinking I may, there could very well be a solo show next week. I don't know, but
right, we're not sure yet. Yeah, because next week the show falls on the day we normally broadcast and record, falls on the 4th of July.
Right, and people have plans or may just want to take the day off for whatever reason. So, but we will establish that at some point going forward. Who knows? But you can go to our various Twitter or social media spots therein to find that out. I am Roddykat. At Roddykat on Twitter, News Nerds Need on Twitter, News Nerds Needs Reddit. Go check that out. And CB Caps Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. That's so nice and neat. He doesn't have all these other extraneous stuff for me to read. I appreciate that. Well, until he decides to do something. Anyway.
Right.
PC_Dirt on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com, popculturenet on Twitter, and the subsequent umbrella websites therein. Tim, DOGG98 on Twitter, CB Cron on Twitter, The Click Nation on Twitter, that's DKLIQNATION, and TheClickNation.com, about the same way. And of course, Comic Book Resources, where he's over there writing his face off. Go check out his stuff, the things. Get that man some clicks. He writes well. I'm jealous. And with that, not really. I'm very proud of him. With that though, we will catch you all next time we record. May it be next week or therein afterwards. If we don't record next week, have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend.
Right. Look forward to catching Spider-Man Far From Home.
Just exactly about to say that. Yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming starts a couple of days prior to that. So if you get a chance to check it out, go forth and Spider-5. We've been seeing reviews for it already, which I'm desperately avoiding.
Yes, friend of the show, Crystal Velasquez, author.
Oh, yes. I saw that.
Has already seen a preview screening.
And I saw because I saw the email. Well, I didn't know she had gone to that, but the email from Eduardo. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who did
Boring Kenya.
Yes. I apologize for forgetting your name. My mind goes crazy, but yeah,
Rodriguez, I think it is.
I believe it is. Yeah, he offered to do a screening, which I believe that's the same screening she might have gone to. I believe. In that area. Well, so that was a good thing. It was cool. So, and we like I said, we found out that she went. So that's awesome. And apparently enjoyed it from what I saw her tweet, or I guess implied from her tweet, because she didn't necessarily say one way or the other. But so with that, like I said, we will catch you guys when we catch you all. Have a safe and wonderful 4th of July again, like I said. And this is the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
Good evening, Rick. Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Oh, you insulting tongue, it mocked my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really hired, Mr. Stark?